Do you want to learn effective ways to build relationships, generate sales, and grow your business from successful entrepreneurs, startups, and CEOs without listening to a long interview? If so, you've come to the right place. Gresham Harkless values your time and is ready to share with you precisely the information you're in search of. This is the I Am CEO podcast.
Hello. This is Gresh from the I Am CEO podcast, and I have a very special guest on the show today. I have Alan Cohen of AlanSamuelCohen.com. Alan, it's awesome to have you on the show.
Great to be here. Thank you so much.
No problem. Super excited to have you on. And what I want to do is just read a little bit more about Alan so you can hear about all the awesome things that he's been doing. And Alan Cohen is a professional certified executive and team coach, public speaker, and author who has built a 30-plus year career around the idea that no matter the industry or challenge, breakthroughs come from mastering effective communication. Spending decades as both a marketing expert and human resource consultant, he presided over the successful launch of the Harry Potter series as a Scholastic's director of marketing, as well as serving as the director of communications for the Broadway League, representing the Tony Awards. Alan has worked with global organizations including Bloomberg, Tiffanys, NBC, Bravo, American Express, Skadden Arps, Edelman and MetLife, and hundreds of small businesses and solopreneurs, and speaks frequently to groups and at conferences on the power of connection. Alan, are you ready to speak to the IMCO community?
I am ready.
Awesome. Let's do it. And I was definitely looking forward to this. I know we talked a lot offline about the whole Harry Potter, but I wanted to kick everything off here a little bit more about your background and what led you to kind of get started with your business.
Sure. Well, it's a great question. I sometimes laugh. I think it's like I should run a program called like Oops, I'm CEO, because like suddenly I became head of a company, and before I knew it, I was called to do all those things that you have to do when you're running a company. I don't think I expected the magnitude of what it would be. But I worked in public relations and marketing, little stint in human resources for up until 12 years ago, and we'll talk about the Harry Potter experience. But that really was what was my pivot into coaching, because soon after I launched that publicity event, I moved into coaching and running my own business. So that moment for me was really noticing what an effective team does and what an ineffective team does, and wanting to help organizations run more effective teams. So the Harry Potter experience was a great example of a cohesive team that was able to deliver huge results. And so I sort of began my study there, and then I went into a formal coaching program and started doing that, as a business.
Nice. Well, yeah, I definitely appreciate that. And I think that I always say, like, when you really peel back the onions of a business or organization, like sometimes you forget it's made up of people, and those people have to be able to do a lot of those core skills, that you help out organizations with, that you forget that there's teams, and the teams have to be able to work together no matter the different personalities and all those things. So I definitely appreciate you, being able to do that.
Sure. And I had also been a part of some pretty dysfunctional teams, teams that embodied all the toxins. So getting to see it from both sides has been really helpful, and especially in the work that I do with my clients. Usually clients are not hiring me because their teams are already working so well together.
Right.
So it's good for me to be able to meet them where they are and acknowledge that teams have an evolutionary process. So.
Yeah, it's great to hear that. Just like, us individuals, wherever you are, it doesn't mean that's where you have to end. So a lot of times you can develop and get better. But it's funny you said that, because I thought you kind of alluded to it before, just how sometimes I believe the greatest teachers are sometimes the dysfunctional or the things that you don't want to do. So sometimes you can learn just from that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And so I wanted to hear a little bit more about what you're doing with these teams. Could you break down what you're doing as a coach and how you're serving your clients?
Sure. So my the foundation of everything that I do is emotional intelligence, and which is a tool that I use that I'm certified in, and I help teams really align around what the core emotional intelligence elements is that is important to them, whether it's empathy or trust or problem solving or any number of different aspects of emotional intelligence. I work a lot with EQ and a lot around helping teams build trust without trust falls. You know, we don't do trust falls, but we really get into the core of why teams are working well together and where the breakdowns are. And understanding also human behavior, where do our defenses kick in when we're under stress, what are some of those ineffective behaviors that show up and what to do about them. So really helping teams build their kind of resiliency muscle, build the real important strengths to get them through both the good times as well as the difficult times is so important. You know, I feel like in a lot of ways, if you think about teams, like use the analogy of a sports team, so sports teams, they spend a lot of time practicing and they don't spend a whole lot of time in play. They spend, I would say, 80% of their time practicing being a team and 20% out on the field. I think teams in business need to follow that same principle, and we have it reversed, where we're always like in it. We're just always like sort of moving the shit around, you know, but we're not spending any real quality time learning shared language, developing ground rules for how we want to engage with each other in conflict, out of conflict. So I help teams really practice being a team so that they build that muscle.
Yeah, and that's definitely huge. I'm glad you know, I'm a big sports junkie, so I appreciate you for breaking that down. Just, you know, remembering, like, you know, by the time, you know, you watch a game or see an athlete or whoever in action, they have done so many hours outside of that to develop that skill for the actual, you know, show. So they've been working at that. But it's funny that you mentioned that, because a lot of times as business owners, we don't necessarily adopt that mindset of developing ourselves as leaders, developing our teams and our organizations in that exact same way.
And I think that's even more significant now when you've got so many virtual teams and organizations going through such change at such rapid speed. I think that it's really important that teams learn how to engage both virtually as well as live and in person. And it's an art. All right. Teams that really play together, work well together. They spend a lot of time developing that discipline.
Right. Exactly. And it definitely takes, you know, practice in order to do that. So you might have already touched on this, but would you consider that to be like your secret sauce, what you feel kind of distinguishes you and sets you apart?
I think that well, there are a couple of things. I think there are a ton of coaches out there, right? A ton of coaches, a ton of consultants, and you know, it's, you know, you can't take 5 steps without stepping over one. But I've helped people connect and communicate for 25 years, and I work at the intersection of communication and connection. I think that, you know, having worked with big brands, working on the being a part of building a movement with Harry Potter, I think I've seen the power of connection. So everything that I do is rooted in how people connect and in a meaningful way. So I think that's I think my model for helping people connect also spans across all businesses, because it doesn't, I'm industry agnostic, even though I've worked a lot in media and entertainment. I've worked with law firms and and financial services firms. So it doesn't really matter the industry. For me, it's everything is about how we connect in real time, how we build trust. So I've got a lot of experience in communication and human resources and marketing, but the narrative, the storyline is all about how we connect.
Yeah, and I think that's so big, especially in this day and age with so many tools to connect. I think I read something where it almost seems that we're lonelier than we were before with all these opportunities to connect. So it's great that you're actually helping people to understand that it sounds like connection is not just, oh, we're friends on Facebook or we work in the same office, but it's something a lot deeper than that, and how to do that and cultivate that.
Yeah. So my new book is called The Connection Challenge: How
Mhm.
Executives Create Power and Possibility in the Age of Distraction. It really addresses that very thing. And I talk about something called connection alchemy, which is really what explosive results that can happen when all of these touch points are addressed. So first and foremost, it's connecting with ourselves, who we are at our core, what's important to us, why that matters, what our talents are, what our strengths are. That's first. Then it's really connecting to a team and looking at those points of alignment. And then the third is that the team and the individual need to be connected to a strong purpose, a strong why, and then all of those permutations and combinations need to happen. Team to individual, team and individual to purpose, and so forth. And when all those things are aligned, and that's a lot of the work is alignment, because we get so into the weeds of who did what, and pointing fingers and blame and all that. But when we can kind of elevate the conversation, get that helicopter view of what's important to each person and the team, and then something larger, then great things happen. So that's I don't know if I answered your question. I just went on a tangent, but that's what I'm about.
Yeah, no, I think that's absolutely huge, because I think that, and especially like that you touched on the idea of making sure that everybody has that helicopter view, because I think a lot of times, and I've read before that a lot of times as a leader, you're trying to get people, the right people in the right seats. And a lot of times understanding that this is what this person's mission or goal is, so you understand and can have a deeper, relationship, connection, and engagement with that person. It's like you said, definitely an art, but it's something that leaders should be aware of, and we should try to execute as much as possible. I wanted to switch gears a little bit, and I wanted to ask you for what I call a CEO hack. And you might have already touched on this, but this is an app, a book, or it could even be something big you wanted to kind of touch on with your book, but it's something that makes you more effective and efficient.
Well, there are two things. One is on the mindfulness side, and then the other is a little more tactical. So I believe in meditation as a means to access creativity, and so I love Headspace, the app Headspace. It's one of my favorites. So I try to do at least 10 minutes a day with the app, or just focused, just focusing my mind and calming my thoughts.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Yeah, I'm really big into using like project management systems, and I too have tried to write on napkins. And if you find any that have my handwriting, then please return it back, because I can't find half the ones I used to. Well, awesome. Also, now I wanted to ask you for what I call a CEO nugget, and this is a word of wisdom or a piece of advice. Or if you can hop into a time machine, what would you tell your younger business self?
I would say have a plan. I know that sounds so basic, but I had no plan. I'm kind of a manifester of opportunity, and but that doesn't necessarily get you where you want to go as quickly as you want to get there. So I would say yes to this and say yes to that, and partner up with this person or that person. And it just didn't, it was interesting, and and I learned a lot, but it didn't necessarily lead me on an ineffective path.
Right. And that helps out a lot. It's happening to somebody else's experience is even better.
Yeah, totally.
So now I wanted to ask you my absolute favorite question, which is the definition of what it means to be a CEO. And we're hoping to have different quote unquote CEOs on the show. So Alan, what does being a CEO mean to you?
I would say it's more about being the CCO, right? I'm the Chief Connection Officer. Like, I know some people use that term to refer to their HR person or their marketing person, but I actually think the best CEOs are connectors in every sense of the word. They're actively connecting to their clients, to their employees, to themselves. They're doing the mindset work to make sure that they're sharp.
No, I think that's a great perspective, great definition, just because a lot of times, like I kind of talked about, I think life in general, definitely business and organizations is all about relationships and building connections and having meaningful connections. So, Alan, I truly appreciate your time. What I want to do is pass you the mic, so to speak, just to see if there's anything additional you can let our readers and listeners know. And then, of course, how best they can get a hold of you.
Great. Well, first of all, I want to invite everybody to visit my website. I'm offering a free excerpt, free chapter and intro of my book, The Connection Challenge. So visit alansamuelcohen.com/sample/chapter. And really, I would say just, for everyone who is running a team, for executives who are responsible for team, for all team leaders, just know that you've got this great opportunity to really excel by bringing out the best of your team, and sometimes we're not able to see what the best is because we're in it, but I'm happy to chat with anyone about what those possibilities might be and how I might be able to support them in developing their teams.
Nice. Well, I definitely appreciate you for doing that. Appreciate that for you for making that your life's work as well, too. So we'll make sure to have those links in the show notes so that everybody can get a hold of you and, of course, get a copy of your book. Again, I appreciate your time, and I hope you have a phenomenal rest of the day.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the I Am CEO podcast powered by Blue 16 Media. Tune in next time and visit us at IAM353.co. I Am CEO is not just a phrase, it's a community. Be sure to follow us on social media and subscribe to our podcast on iTunes, Google Play, and everywhere you listen to podcasts. Subscribe and leave us a 5-star rating. Grab CEO gear at www.ceogear.co. This has been the I Am CEO podcast with Gresham Harkless. Thank you for listening.